now for a eulogy for Kinato's Magic. This week marks the final chapter of Kinato's Magic. And so, generally, I think that this series is an example of, unfortunately, wasted potential. So, when the series started, I thought that it had the spark of something that was really interesting. It had a main character who was set up to be not the typical shonen protagonist, not the typical, overpowered, maybe not overpowered, but this person of destiny who was going to acquire the strength of your typical, insert your favorite shonen protagonist here, Luffy, Ichigo, Naruto, Goku, whoever you'd like, who has this, special destined God-given power to, or potential to become this character that is, overwhelmingly powerful than all the other foes and go around and win based on, whatever reasons that you want to have here. In Kinato's Magic, you didn't have that. You had a character who was tailor made to be a support character, which is an interesting take on the genre. It's an interesting take for the magazine. It's not something that you see very often, and I think that there was a potential to have a character that we were following who could bring out the best in the people around them and who could use their ability to turn enemies into friends, into allies, things like that. um, and I think that that's a very good setup for a series, especially for something in Shonen Jump, especially given what you would have in there. And I think that's what you had in Kinato's Magic. But I think that Kinato's Magic failed that promise in a few different ways. The first being, um, it flirted for too long with trying to go away from that character, the main characteristic of Kinato, which is that he's a support character. They were trying to give him the typical shonen powers, typical like I'm the superpowered, main character. So much so that he basically became Deku, like he became a straight up Deku clone. He was, buffing his. So when you started this series, he was unable to buff himself, or at least that was what the setup was. Was like I can use my Seitei magic on everybody but myself, which is really cool. Like that. That is what how you would set up a character that buffs everybody around him. But then you give him this like little magic ball thing that could be used as a like, hey, in case of emergency, break glass. I can still take care of myself. Boom, there you go. You're set up. You're good to go. I'm in. Like I'm ready. But you then take from there and have Kinato just be just singularly focused on trying to become Deku. He's like, I want to destroy my body and put on the buffs on to putting the buffs on myself, even though I'm not capable of doing that, so that I can just be, the overpowered protagonist that, we see all sorts of things. And frankly, Kinato is not interesting enough for him to be for him to be that sort of protagonist. So I did think that was definitely a step in the wrong direction. But even before then, there was an issue that was coming up, and that was simply that this series did not take the appropriate amount of time to build up its characters and to build up its main cast. Like I mentioned before, Kinato, he was a weak protagonist. Like I'll just be honest. He was like just the purest little good boy golden retriever type character. And he needs a proper foil, for that to be a compelling character to maintain. Now, I just want to acknowledge what this little cover that I'm in front of right now is acknowledging, which is there was this setup that there was going to be this main three here. There was going to be Kinato, there was going to be Lene, there was going to be Jean. I think that was an awesome setup. I really like Jean. Lene was the bizarre. I mean, the fact that she's basically in a high school uniform in this fantasy setting world for no real reason at all. And she kind of had this crazy shifting personality that I think if they, again, it goes back to if they had given her time to breathe, set her up as, who she was and her character. And if we just spent more time with Jean, like having those three just sort of go around and be a kind of, buddy trio doing things, I think would have been a much better way of going. But instead, basically from chapter 3 or chapter 4 on, every single chapter they were introducing 2 to 3 extremely important characters, like important and not just like, not in the way of like how an episodic series will be like, okay, in this chapter we're focusing on these people, and then we know that, oh, they may not come back later, or if they do, it's going to be in a really small way. Like, you can have a series that does that. Kinota's Magic was like, no, 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 no. Like, I'm introducing characters that are going to be relevant and they're going to continue to be involved for the rest of the series. And they were doing that every single chapter. They kept introducing more and more people. And it's like, I barely even know this main three here. How am I going to keep track of all these people? And I don't even remember half of their names. And, you know, in doing this thing where you keep introducing all of these characters, they start just being reduced to these nothing burgers, or these complete, just like don't even feel like real people. Like, we have to make it so blatantly obvious what we're trying to go for here. I mean, the rival character, like, who knows what his name actually was? I don't remember at the end of the day. And again, who, it doesn't really matter. But they were just trying to hype him so hard. It's like, he's the rival. He will be Kinato's rival. This is the guy. Like, they were putting it in the text that this guy is going to be Kinato's rival going forward. And I just thought that style, it was really grating. And I didn't feel like I could hold on to anything. And that was ultimately the problem. That is why I think for a lot of people this series felt so generic, it felt so blah, it felt so just nothing, was because at the end of the day, what could you hold on to? You couldn't hold on to Kinato being a support character because he did it a little bit, and then they shifted and spent way too long trying to make him not a support character. You couldn't hold on to Kinato's personality because he had nothing to be a foil against. So it's just this constant, golden retriever energy with nowhere to put it. You couldn't hold on to Lene because she's off screen for most of the thing. Like, she wasn't even involved. Same thing with Jean. Jean's there for the first couple chapters, and then he's gone, and then he shows back up whenever they go to the Ninja Lady Village. I actually thought that the Ninja Lady Village, I was like super worried about that village because, and we'll get to the reason why, because that's a whole thing I haven't even mentioned yet. But I thought that little mini arclet was doing a much better job of allowing characters to breathe, allowing characters to interact with each other, such that you got a better sense of who they are. But again, Gene was there and Gene did nothing. I mean, Gene did absolutely nothing. Gene in particular, I think, was a super wasted potential of a character because he did nothing for this whole series. I mean, even though he was there, he was in jail the whole time, and then all the cool stuff he did was off screen. Yeah, like that was really frustrating in that he was just a wasted potential of a character. But I do still think that little arclet was doing um, a little bit better in that regard, but clearly not good enough. And I can't go any farther without mentioning the third and ultimately the thing. I don't know if I found it the most annoying, but it is definitely like near the top of my list of the annoying things. The pointless fan service. Like, I understand that there's going to be an element to, especially with a struggling series, you kind of are doing a sort of desperation fan service to try to, desperately cling on to life. But I felt that rather than going the fan service route, I think that you could have done something so much more creative with how Kinato's Seitei magic like relaxes his opponents, because ultimately that's what his power was that it could act as this buff for his friends, but as a total debuff to his enemies. And you could have depicted that in a very creative, very interesting way, but instead you just went straight to the fan service. It's just, naked and blah. And it's like, what are we doing? And it was just annoying and frustrating. And um, ultimately, fan service doesn't tend to be my bag, but I think that even with fan service, there are ways that you can do it that were better than this, which was just like, it was clearly like, we're trying to do this to maintain your interest. Like, oh, look over here, look at the, dangle the keys, like, oh, look at this. It was trying to distract you from the fact that there was just nothing you could hold on to with the series. And ultimately, I think that is what is really frustrating about Kinato's Magic. In that, am I sad to see it go? Given where it was at, no. Given what it had become, no. Am I sad to see what it became over time? Heck yeah, heck yeah. I think if I had been the editor for this series, which again I don't know if I'm super qualified, but if I had been the editor for the series, what I would have said would have been, you know what you need to do is you need to just, I understand you have all these characters you want to introduce. Maybe don't do so many. I would have been like, hey, you don't need to introduce these characters this time. How about just let Jean and Lene go with Kinato and have that be the group, the ragtag group. Like, you could have introduced the night lady and have that been the one, but I would have said maintain with this core three, give them a little bit of time to breathe. Maybe you don't even need to go to the guilds right away. Like, the guilds probably could have been introduced like chapter 7 to 10. Like, it didn't need to be chapter two. Because I think that started some of your problems. And then you could bring in some of these other characters and give us more time to breathe. But yeah, ultimately, I think that Kinato's magic suffered for a variety of reasons, and it is not surprising to me at all that it was axed. And I hope that uh, there were lessons learned, because I do think that the art was interesting. I've liked the art for this all the way through, and I do think that there was potential in here that with another series maybe could be improved. So yeah, it's unfortunate that it ended, but I honestly don't think anybody is really surprised. If you were surprised, let me know. I mean, I would love to hear about it, but that's going to be all my thoughts on Kinato's Magic. Um, you know, maybe see you again soon.